A very good morning to you and welcome to a new day here on Signature Television. My name is Godwin Sunday. This morning we'll be talking about youth involvement in governance. And joining me in this conversation is Prince Owo Great, the senior legislative aide to the Senate President. And we'll be talking about youth involvement in government. You're welcome to New Day on Signature Television, Prince.
Thank you very much, Godwin. Good day and good morning, Nigerians. Thank you.
All right, so let's even get into the conversation. First, you are a youth and a young person, and of course, you've been in the corridor of politics for a while. How's the journey been so far?
Thank you very much once again. I would say that the journey has been very worthwhile. The experience has been worthwhile, given the different intricacies of politics, governance in general. And for me, it's been very worthwhile because it's a learning experience for me. But as the day goes by, as the involvement comes in, you get to see the different dynamics instead of staying from outside the curveball to take a deciding factor of what is happening. It's better for you to get your feet wet in the waters for you to know how murky the water is. And I think for me, getting involved in these processes has really been worthwhile and very experiencing for me.
All right, interesting. Let's even talk about youth involvement in general in politics. A lot of youth tend to shy away from political activities, especially in Nigeria. I'm surprised that you have gotten yourself involved and decided to put your legs in the deep waters. But why is this so? Why is the narrative of youth involvement in politics, especially the democratical era, why is this so?
Well, I still, for me, I feel like it's just perception. I feel like youth involvement in governance and politics, as long as Nigeria is concerned, has always been the bedrock, of youth involvement in governance. The youth are the one who seek for democracy in this country, irrespective of how we have journeyed so far. But we know that those who came out in their voices and demanded for the democracy of this country were youth. They were young, full women and men who decided that it was time for us to get together and have a deciding factor on the way we move as a nation. So yes, for me, I feel youth have always been involved in governance and in democracy. There's just this perception about, for example, they would say, don't run for office. How will I put it? This perception and this knowledge that even if you vote, your vote will not count. But that's not the truth, because there's a process on which how things are done, and it's only fair for you to be able to be a part of these, consecutively and consistently as they go, to be able to shape how we get involved as youth in governance. So for me, if you ask me, I feel that youth have always been involved in governance. There's just this smokescreen and belief that youths should not be involved in governance, or youths feel more laid back and relaxed and having this knowledge or this perception that the old guys in the business or the old guy in governance and politics are the one running things, if I would use that useful word. And I feel like every day there are more conscious youth out there who know that they have to be a part of the process, to be a deciding factor.
Interesting so far. I was looking out for the fact that most youth are saying right now that the cost of joining the political space right now is quite expensive. So that's why most of them shy. Can this also be a factor why most youth are not involved in governance?
It is a big factor. We're not going to shy away from it. Definitely, finance is a very big factor into the role of governance, into the role of politics, and we cannot shy away from that fact that most youths who have brightest of ideas are being shut out of the finances to be able to go through political processes that take them into power. And if you ask me, even if we know that there are financial constraints for youths who have bright ideas for them to be able to go and give their quarter in governance, that shouldn't be a deciding factor for youths to shy away from governance. Why I say so is because, as much as the belief that youths need to be involved, I see it just like in this administration. You can see that there has been a vast number of involvement in youth, women, and even the disabled getting involved in governance. You can see in the Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration, the tax reforms executives and the team that have been formed. We have a very young, youthful, vibrant participant in that team, which just tells you that this administration are very keen to see how they can bridge that gap. Where we now see it, so the fact that finances is not too much of a problem. Political parties also must come into the picture. They must also come into the conversation to be able to see that there's a framework that enables you to be able to get involved, in as much as they know that there's a cap towards the finances that will be involved, to at least assist youths to actualizing their dream and giving their quota back into governance.
All right, so let's talk about this issue of region-based youth participation in government. People believe that when we say youth don't participate or get involved in government, it is region-based. For example, in the north, large number of youths get involved. Teenagers even get involved in politics. In the south, a large number of youth shy away from politics. Can we now say that orientation politically within Nigeria has affected youth involvement in politics, and politics have been tied to region? Or what do we make of such a scenario?
That scenario, when we speak about region, I think this is the very fabric that has been embedded into the Nigerian system from the get-go. But nevertheless, I am a preacher of a united Nigeria, a one front Nigeria, given the fact that I schooled in the north, coming from the south. I really grew up in the southwest, from the south, but schooled in the north. So I call myself a Nigerian because I have that diverse effect from every corner. So if we are speaking about regional politics, looking at the number of involvement from the north and compared to the south, I would say there's a bridge there that needs to be covered. Looking at our political class, our leaders, our traditional rulers, coming from the south, to give room and trust to more youths to get involved in making sure that they give their quota in. That's why, for me, I believe that there should be leadership and mentorship processes. We've seen in past where we have our political leaders and representatives take upon this faction, this structure, to be able to aid youths in the south. We can see it from even my principal, Senator Godswill Lobodo-Pabio, the Senate President, has been able to give this model effect to be able to see how it trickles down to raising the youths from the south to get very involved in politics. And if we look at it, we have very bright minds from the south who have relatively put themselves up front. We even have one of the presidential setup, which is Gift Jumbo, who is one of the essays to the special senior assistants to engagement, I think stakeholders engagement from the youth angle in the south. She's doing beautifully well. So I think these are steps that will, in order make sure that we gear in the Southerners, the South, the South to get more involved in politics. We have them more involved, very vibrant minds. In the North, yes, there is the structure in the North that I foresee as to the fact that succession in continuity is always in place. And for the South, we must see to model that. That is what I see in Lagos, where we've had very youthful candidates, we see a youthful representative. Thank God for the Not Too Young to Wrong bill that was signed by former President Muhammad Buhari, I think 2018-19, that has seen to House of Assembly members, rep members, down to the Speaker of Assemblies in their 30s. If we are talking about 150 million youthful young Nigerians making a big quota in our numbers from the age of 35 downwards, it tells you that it is a big time to play out to make sure that both the South and the North come together to see how they put up relevance in the youth structure of governance and this continuity in governance for us to be able to take this country forward as youths.
Amazing conversation so far. Let's drive this conversation back to the grassroots, which has been the front line for political
the most important.
development.
Yeah, the
If you
most
like,
important.
you can say the most important.
The most important.
But then again, the grassroots youth involvement in politics, Nigerian politics right now, has been tied to a lot of discrepancies. We wouldn't want to shy away from the fact that most people from the grassroots will rather look for white collar jobs or aspire to get a white collar job than aspire to be a politician, especially at the grassroots. And that is supposed to be the breeding ground for youth to get involved in politics. Now, the question is, if the youth are not getting involved in politics at the grassroots, everybody's eyeing the office of the governor, the office of the president. And because they're not too young to not run bill, to a large extent, is not targeting at the local government. It's targeting the governorship position and that of the president. Is there hope for Nigeria, especially at the grassroots level?
There is indeed hope, and the renewed hope agenda that we preach definitely tilts us towards this direction. You can see it from the local government financial autonomy bill, which has just been signed, from by the National Assembly, sent from the executive. This just tells you that the system understands that politics is local, meaning that it all starts from the grassroots. Godwin, let me share with you that just during this local government election, I went back home to my community to campaign the length and breadth of our local governments, wards and units to be able to, talk with the people. This is a continuous effort, by the way. It's not just something that we do during the election, but continuously to be able to interact, and have engagement with the people and say, let us understand what is happening back at home, so that representatives like us that you send on duties will be able to make sure that the dividends of democracy comes back down. It is imperative that the local government are very keyed into the decision making of governance, and in politics in general. I have this, I think I don't know if I'll call it a principle or a school of thought, that the society starts from the family. And if we can get it right from the family, from the family sector, it will trickle down to our smallest community for it to enable us to even take us down to the presidency or a governor. Because a president or governor comes from a family. And if the right values and morals are being taught in the family, in respect to governance and politics, it will trickle down to the leaders that we, in order put in place to lead us. It is important. And I'm happy that in the administration of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu Renew Hope agenda, led, through also with the President of the Legislative, with the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio, as well as what the Speaker is doing in the House of Rep, you can see that they have the projection for them to making sure that in the grassroots, things are done properly, and we get engaged people from the grassroots to be able to represent the people and bring down, the dividends of democracy down to the grassroots. Everybody should be a part and parcel of what we are doing. It's imperative. It's very important. We're going all around, and I could see the vibrant numbers of youth in the community from ward to ward, agitating for who they know or who they feel was going to be able to get the job done for them. And that's the beauty of democracy. You have various parties, to get involved to be able to lead you to that direction. That is why it's important for youths in the community, as down as the grassroots, coming from the units to the wards, down to the local government, down to the states, while we are looking up to the federal, to be able to get involved. And how can you do this? You can do this by being part of a political party. If you are not part of a political party, you cannot even say that this is the candidate I want to go and represent me in my party, that can project his ideologies of the party and his personality to the people and the community to trickle down democracy. Now, this is just the best option. You get involved in a political party enough for you to have a deciding factor with the ideologies of the person and the party to now elect that person into power or into governance. And I'm grateful because we see that Youths are getting involved, as councillors, as local government chairmen. I'm grateful that for states like mine as well as states, all over the federation are getting women involved also in the quarter. We are seeing whereby the disabled also are in the picture, even as youths, for them to have a voice. We need to see that in the community, the people who are leading the community and speaking of the community are those of youthful age and youthful. I really do not see why a certain age bracket should be vying for the chairman of a local government or a councillor, because I'm not age is an advantage, is an experience. It comes into the picture because then we are able to guide us, the young ones, into the mantle of leadership properly with the right morals and values. Now, if that is the case, then bring the room on for mentorship and leadership, where you put young leaders in position for them to thrive within the ideologies that you have given to them. As a mentor, it's just the goal. So for me, it's imperative that the youth get involved in the grassroots to be able to dialogue with the market women, the keke and bike riders who are feeling the pinch of the economy at the moment and feeling how things are. The youth can relatively tell them and explain to them what the policies and the agendas of the administration and the government and the representation of the people they've put in there are doing, or are helping them at the moment, or are leading them through, in order for them to have a peace of mind and say, okay, definitely democracy will trickle down to me, because Mr. A, Mr. B, who I see from unit to unit, word to word, is involved in governance.
Well, Mr. Great, you've spoken greatly about the family structure, which you've called the family tree, that can metamorphose into a larger scope of the society.
Of course.
And we have more involvement in politics. But then again, most people that stay in remote communities, in rural areas, they tend to perceive politics as a dirty game. They tend to perceive politics as a sacred cow that's reserved for a selected few. If you like, you can call it an oligarchy system. That is a government of the selected few. We tend to see that play out over and over again. So this can also scare most rurals from wanting to get involved. Of course, you can't rule out the fact also that we've seen a lot of politicians do magic in the name of canvassing for votes towards elections. I'm asking at this point, is the federal government giving out enough orientations to people at the grassroots to be able to understand what politics is, so that we can, when we say youths are not getting involved, or they are partially getting involved, or they are completely getting involved, let's tie it to orientation. Are they being given the right orientation from the school system, our educational system, then narrow it down before we now even come back to the family?
Yes, quite a very elaborate question there, and a very tricky one too. God really. For me, I definitely see it in this way. Orientation is a job for every well-meaning Nigerian.
But not everybody get paid to give orientation.
Yes, not everybody get paid. Okay, there's this what they say. Let me know. I'm not quoting it right now, but they say. I think one of the president candidates in America, or even the president, made that statement. He said, "Don't look at what the country can do for you, but what can you do for your country." It's about service. Never the fact we must be appreciated and paid for our good skills, our intellect, our service to our country, in as much as we are paying taxes and all the rest. So we also must be appreciated. But then orientation comes with every well-meaning Nigerian individually preaching the good gospel of the country, bringing out the necessary information that should be out there to reorientate Nigerians in respect to involvement in governance as youths or Nigerians in general. In my unit, in my office, we are having discussions and initiative regarding reorientation to well-meaning Nigerians in respect to having first-hand information regarding the reforms, the opportunity that the federal government and this Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration is bringing forth for youths as well as Nigerians at large. The Nigerian Orientation Agency also are doing their utmost best in respect to reorientating, in the media, traditional media and the social media space through advert to collaboration with influencers. We can see the recent, the Minister of Culture, Henatu. She has recently a piece of content that is going around on social media that speaks about Nigerians in a positive light. There's always going to be these discrepancies here and there when it comes to positivity in our country, but I'm a preacher of positivity in Nigeria, and that leads to also the orientation that has to be trickled down to the grassroots in respect for youth to be involved in governance. We must intentionally, continuously, because I believe in continuity. We see that blueprint posted out in Lagos State from the time of Bola Ahmed, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu was governor. The continuity stretch which has come even till now, the present governor of Lagos, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. There is a continuity, intentionality in respect to orientation, in respect to the rules and laws, the reforms. What are your representatives? What do they do? What are their roles? What does a councillor do? The youths in the community, in the local government, in the unit might not even know what the councillor represents, or what the House of Assembly or the reps, or or what the role of the reps is. And they have this notion, it's just for them to come around maybe once in a while and dole out cash. Meanwhile, if a legislator is supposed to make the laws that would be profitable to you, then if you have that understanding, I believe that the youths would also assist, the leaders to be able to get their job done. It doesn't take away the fact that they have to be taken care of. I mean, these people have trusted you to be there, so you have to take care of them by any means and by the ability that God has given you. You're not going to drop the gun because the request is 10,000 people are getting married and you want to dole out cash for marriage. That won't be the case. Yeah. But then, proper orientation given down to the grassroots will help in even our finances, which for me and my foundation, we are looking at putting out this framework in respect to financial literacy and personal development. And while we were brainstorming with our team, we saw that there is a vacuum there because of the project that we are doing from communities to communities, which has been a part of me from when I was serving in my NYC to when I was with the Voluntary Service Organization UK, which is a voluntary service that also participates in community engagement. We've seen that over the time in the track record, these blueprints get to verily effects on our young minds that we actually dole out this information and this orientation to and this guideline to. So if the government continuously, are very intentional in making sure that orientation gets down to the very least of the community for it to be able to trickle down and then give us a better room to have a knowledge base of what we are doing, it will be of the best, most especially for the roots and the grassroots. It's very, very important. I see there's a debate on the budget about orientation. It's never enough. We in the media business, we can understand this when it comes to ads and it comes to putting out content out there. The budget that you have for ads alone as a business and a brand is never enough. It just means you have to be increasing over time to get the message to the million of Nigerians that are globally in the world.
Interesting conversation. But then, at this point, knowing fully well that orientation is never enough, in secondary schools right now, we have 3 basic departments for people that have clocked, they got into the 3rd or the 4th cadre in secondary schools. I think we're talking about senior secondary schools. Okay. And we have the commercial, the art, and sciences. So far, so good. The sciences know little or nothing about governments and governance, and these are people that will form the Nigerian youth. The commercial have little or no knowledge about governance, and these are people that will form the Nigerian youth. Then we have the art students that largely have a course that they call government. they do it. I think it's from SS1 to SS3. They still do it right now. The only course I think they do in secondary school is citizenship. That gives them a bit of understanding of what the Nigerian is, the Nigerian leadership structures ought to be. That is to say that the conversations around leadership and governance is not being driven moderately. So I want to ask, as an advocate for good governance, which you've always stood for, should the conversation right now be that we should scrap out or we should incorporate government as a subject and its compulsory subject and that, for that matter, for in all classes in secondary schools? What do you think about this old thought line? It might just be my own thought, perhaps, you know.
Lovely insight, Godwin. Lovely question. Thank you once again. And you know, I was telling you about a roundtable discussion we were having in regards to financial literacy and personal development blueprints that my foundation, the Enriching Life Foundation, have been very keyed into, and we are trying to take it now into a global space. I want to acknowledge what you've said in respect to science, arts, and commercial. You know, coming into the educational system, I was a science student. You know,
I'm surprised to hear that you're a science student.
I was indeed a science student.
I'm surprised to hear you're a science student.
I was indeed a science student. You know, which led me into my.
Hope it's not Olamide science student.
Oh no, not the Bado, not the Bado.
All right.
You know, but which relatively led me into studying computer science management and business management. It was a good background for me. I'm somebody who, I like to think deep, and I'm very inquisitive. I like to really research, go into in depth of the things that trickle what would I use? That trigger my interest, you know. And I feel like that is one orientation we also need to drive into our school system. And we can see that the Bola Ahmed Tinubu-led administration are very particular about the reforms in the educational system. We can see there was a recent rejig. In the educational system, in the educational structure, which inevitably we know that is going to trickle down into certain changes that will be of advantage to the youths, most especially those of young minds in the secondary, primary school. I mean, we need to be very intentional. These are the things that we speak about when I say intentionality. We need to be intentional and consistent enough for us to drive the right message into our young minds. There's a study around kids which gives them a window for you to be able to train their mind from as little as 0 to 7, you know, and from 8 to all the age from 18 and above. Because from 18 down, in fact, from the 0 age to the 12, 15, their mind at that moment can take in all. So we are supposed to make use of that time very, very judiciously. I have been in the chamber, in the National Assembly, in the Senate Hallowed Chamber, where discourse has been made and debates by honorable senators, you know, regarding the reforms of the educational system, which gives me a breath of fresh air that we have leaders, you know, and the political class who are willing and knowledgeable enough to know that the educational system needs certain reforms to be able to help in shaping our values and morals in the country and nation as a whole, which relatively starts from the youth. We need to have these curriculums in our educational reform, such as, like you said, citizenship education, government. You know, we need to take it even a step further into leadership, into governance, into financial literacy, into self-development, because you see the society has been so entrenched that there's so much things we need to take care of. That's why I always go back to the family units, whereby even through financial literacy, there are proper etiquettes in finance that can assist and help young minds and the youths in such thriving times, with as little as either no job or a skill, as well as an employed job. Because it just takes your, you know, your thought process for you to say, I am interested in this thing and I want to know better in it. It is key for us to be able to make sure that we see that either it is a science, commercial, or government, that the young minds and young Nigerians are properly tutored on governance, leadership, political parties, as well as every other sector that would help shape the future of young Nigerians in this nation. It is very imperative. I hope that the coming Minister of Education in this recent rejig will key into these factors that are very, very, very key into making sure that even if it's the secondary school or the high school in Uyo Community High School, or a high school in a local government in Akwa Ibom State from where I'm from, are very, very carried along, as well as from the teachers to the principals to the ideology of the educational framework of Nigeria. Dishing it out to these young minds would help them a lot and give them a basic shape and frame of mind coming to the society as they journey on into life, because life is also continuous. They say practice make perfect. I'm not a believer in that. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes improvement. We need to continue to see it in that direction, that we want to improve in our educational sector, in our community, in the involvement of the youths, as well as dealing with our leaders. It is a process. Even America, in the journey of democracy, over centuries have gotten to where they have gotten to. Then Nigeria, in our cradle, we are crawling. It's a continuous journey in governance. It's a continuous journey for the youth involvement as to our community. It's a continuous project, even for our educational, background and structure and processes in respect to making sure we dole out this framework from the community-based education down to, as the height, as the trainings that we have for our president and our House of members and representatives. It must be intentional and it has to be a continuous process, if you ask me.
All right, that's a very interesting comment. Well, if it's just joining us right now, this is New Day on Signature Television, and we're talking about youth involvement in governance, and I'm with the senior legislative aide to the Senate President, person of Senator Goswin Obot Akpabio. Before we talk about begin to assess the performance of youth involvement in governance, let's even look at them first. Let's take this conversation again back to history and leadership. If you observe, we've had Nnamdi Azikiwe through to Gowon and through to Muritala Muhammad, down to Obasanjo. We now move back to Buhari down to Babangida to Abacha to Shenekon, so Shenekon to Abacha to Abdul Salami down to Obasanjo again. Now look at the leadership structure. It has, over time, we've observed, even from the pre-colonial times, that it has always been the youthful minds that have always clamored for leadership in this country. We've had leaders that were as young as 19 that have ruled this country. Yes, we have leaders of that age that have ruled, and we've had leaders of 29 as a president that have ruled this country.
Of course.
Along the line, things changed. But I'm curious at this point, how did we even get to this point where youth are no longer wanting to vie for offices, serious offices, and get involved in serious governance? What changed along the line?
Quite a good point there. Okay, a lot has changed, and they say change is constant. A lot have changed, and this is also what we've just discussed previously in your previous question, where we have said that there are some necessary education that must come in. History is part of those discussions, that must come into the curriculum. We mustn't throw away history. We always go, back in history to see what has happened over time. Well, I remember the 1999 era to the 2003 era. Pre-colonial activities and all the rest that has happened from the military coups. Like I said, it's democracy, so it's quite a journey that I feel we are inevitably going to get better in the process. But yes, a lot has changed. I remember growing up and reading into history as to the politics, as to the governance. You would see that back in time, political parties, the communities, and people would come together to crowd fund and raise money for young participants in governance to get tickets to be able to vie for their electoral positions. And we saw the change for me with my little study. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from 1999 to 2003, where we saw political figures, emance certain benefits from the self out of the blue that raged into certain curiosity of others who wanted to now come into the space, and they had seen that through this service they had to pump in money back into the community for whatever reasons through the political processes for them to come back and retain. So I think this has just happened over time, where it's also like a re-engineering thought process where every other person that wants to come in wants to follow through that process. But then again, we must realize that the end goal is service. We want to be able to go into serving the people. So it shouldn't really be about, okay, what are the gains, what are the gains, what are the gains? You understand? Yeah. So history over time has seen political leaders change the dynamics of the politics in Nigeria. But it's never too late to get it right. That's what I believe.
All right. I'm asking that question to ask this particular question.
Okay.
And this is a question around the fact that so far, from 1999, like you've rightly mentioned, till date, most of the young people that have been involved in government have painted the narrative of young people and youth coming into governance in a bad light. The narrative around youthful involvement has been tied with some form of negativity. Perhaps this could be one of the reasons why even the elderly are afraid to bring the youth on board and give them positions in government, lest they get embarrassed and get worsen the system that they are trying to build. Or don't you think so, that this whole narrative of youth involvement in governance, if we assess it, could be a factor why the elderly are afraid to bring youth in office?
I won't say the elderly are afraid to bring the youths into office, because if you want something, you'll go for it. And if you're going for something that you want, you'll sacrifice for it. And as youths, we should be able to know that we need to sacrifice to making sure we see a better country that is ours. And if the leaders right now at their age, for me, I always see youths within the range of 18 to 45. Anything above that, then even at 45, 46, you're more like an elderly youth, because you need to now be mentoring the ones coming behind you. It's more of mentorship, but you need to lead these people in the right direction. So I have given my time in the National Assembly, being around our very respectful honorable senators and representatives, I've seen a lot of mentorship ideologies driven in a lot of them who are not scared or worried about the youth coming into governance. But you must, like the family unit thing we spoke about, the father is the head of the house. Age, they say, is but a number, yet experience is also derived in age. There are certain things over time that they know that will take you a journey for you to get there. Same thing we're speaking about democracy. We're looking at the number of America and where we are. A time will come where there are certain laws that you can't even put in place because time has gone so far. So I know for a fact that the elderly in governance and politics know that the youth must come into the picture. The youth also must, they must be ready to, do what they have to do to get there. Pay the price, long hours, learn from somebody's ideology in politics and governance where you see it's that reflects of the people. Because you're only but, they say you are the among 5 people, the people that you hang around with is who you are. If you have 5 friends, it relatively reflects on who you are. So if we have conscious leaders who are mentoring youths properly to come into the space, I see no reason why they should be afraid to, give them the position to lead. Because it will only be the fact that let this young man or woman go in there and lead with the guide that I have given him or her, in respect of the backgrounds that you have gotten this tutelage for. So I do not see it in that direction. Yes, there could be a little stifled here because we are youth. The youthful exuberance comes into place where sometimes you go over your head, you want to be a little bit edgy. That comes into place. But we have fatherly roles in these leaders who understand this fact and know that there is a need for young minds to come into the system, into the structure, to take over and continue from where they have stopped. We have this problem where people come in with their own initiative and abandon the whole initiative, setting us 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 years backwards instead of having a continuity, and then building around that framework also. It's very important also for me, for youths to also, eye positions. Yes, you want to go for president, you want to go for governors, but at the same time, we have the House of Assembly members, we have the councillors, we have the House of Rep members, the senators, where you can vie for these positions through the tutelage and mentorship of those that have gone there before, either as like a position that I am as a senior legislative aide to the Senate President under his tutelage. Behind the board, you can see that my principal is somebody who veers for the youths, looking at the numbers of the youths who are around him, from precedence as governor or even as commissioner up till now as the Senate President. You see that his guide intentionally making sure that the youths are around him pick around those values and morals in him as a person before even the Senate President that will lead and guide you futures to come when you're making decisions. So for me, I feel that the youth, in as much as there's this perception and knowledge or school of thought that the old ones don't want the youth to come and take over, I feel that's not the case. For me, I see that they want to mentor the right youth into positions of power and leadership.
Interesting so far. Let's even talk again about, right now we're talking about assessing the youth performance in government, and you've rightly spoken about mentorship and what have you. But in a broader light, in a more elaborate light, can we now say that the Nigerian youth, as it stands right now, the time frame, are Nigerian youth actually ready for governance as it stands right now? If, peradventure, we give in a 25-year-old man or youth the position of the presidency, just like what happened in France, can they take us to the El Dorado, or they further throw us into a state of comatose as it stands right now in Nigeria?
As it stands right now in Nigeria, we have young, bright, youthful Nigerians who can take upon the mantle of presidency in this country. 25 years of age, you would have to build an experience.
I'm even saying 35. So
okay,
I
thought you said 25.
No, I said 35.
Okay,
Let's start with
35. Well, very, very wonderful. At 35 years age, looking at, we've seen what happened in France. It would take a lot of mentorship for a youthful mind at 35 years.
Are we ready right now?
We are ready. We are ready. If we have the likes of Nigerians in the tech space, in the entertainment industry, in medicine, trailblazers in their very different sects globally that are, making their stands and making the directions, they are the ones that are decision makers on the table, then why not, young Nigerians in governance and in politics? If they are at the right direction, with the right mentorship and leadership, they can't steer the affairs of this nation, knowing full factually that a high number of Nigerians are youths into piloting the affairs of this country into the right direction. Nevertheless, we would have a lot of advisory roles, behind the scenes to continuously guide that that youthful position that you are in as a person, irrespective of the experiences that you have gathered over time. I was reading a book, and in the book it said You can read about a person's 5 to 10 years experience within 3 days in just a book, and highlight what the different things that happen within that person's life from grass to grace, or whichever the case may be. So now you have 5 to 10 years of a catalog right in your hand, and you are making a study and research to see what are the pros and the cons, what are the defects, what are the right direction to take. Just for example, the reforms of the president that is being doled out now, about our economical reforms and every other sector, that is biting. But those who know that this is towards the right direction to getting the foundation right as a country, with so much that has happened, to the nation's economy, and you can see that even when these reforms are biting to an extent, the people cry out and say, "Hey, this is becoming too much. I think we need to retract our steps and look for other means where this could be a little bit, breathtaking for us." And then you retract. It's same thing with leadership. I remember coming into the political space, and a mentor of mine who I look up to told me, he said, they don't learn governance, or you don't learn politics rather. It's not a school. You need to get involved in the process to learn the ropes. Like Nike would say, just do it. If you want to get something done, it means you just have to take that bold step to get something done. So if you ask me, a 35-year-old president in this country today, looking at how this administration has embraced youth to be able to get them in ministerial positions, into SSAs, into special assistant position, advisory roles, boards, we can see them trickled in every arms of this administration, from the executive to the legislative to the judiciary. We have young minds who are being placed in the mantle of leadership, ready to take the role when the time comes. And I believe that Nigerians out there as youth, we are ready to take upon this position upon ourselves.
I like the way you said it with confidence. The Nigerians out there, we are ready.
yeah, indeed. I mean, the youthful minds out there, we are indeed.
All right, just before I let you go on the final, I know I did tell you this before we got on board in the studio, but let me take you, your principal, the person of Gospel Obot Akpabio.
Yes.
We way back in university, we used to call him Akpabioism. Because it's a school of thought that people need to go and study. In philosophy, then in the University of Calabar, we were thinking of carving out a kind of thought line for him, so they call it Akpabioism.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Now that's for Gospel Akpabio. But he has been on the forefront of championing the cause of youth in leadership, youth in government. We've seen him do it in Akwa Ibom State over and over again for 8 years consecutively. But as a Senate president, we've not got to see him more interactions with youth and more programs for youth. Probably we're not in the know that some of these things are happening, but thank God you're here. Bring us up to speed on some of the youthful developments that the Senate President is also doing in this regard to further support Nigerian youth and encourage them to come into politics.
Thank you very much, Godwin. Like you said, they are Akpabioism, and that is a very lovely one. His antecedent speaks for himself. Even as the Senate President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, leading the leadership of the 10th National Assembly, it's very evident into the initiatives and the processes of getting youth involved in every of his activities, from appointees to engagement. Just recently, we witnessed the doling out of fertilizers to farmers back at the grassroots. We know that the Renew Hope agenda is heavily preaching on the need to go back to our farming processes and initiative in order for us to be able to feed the nation. And when we inevitably feed ourselves, it will also boost security. This will also build, boost the welfare of youthful Nigerians and Nigerians in all. And we've seen the Senate President time and number, go out in his way and will to make sure that such initiatives as the farming are being implemented in thousands. And he doesn't just cut across just his senatorial district. As the Senate president, who he is responsible for the 6 geopolitical zones, he makes sure that it trickles down to the 6 geopolitical zones, as well as involving, his counterparts, as well as his colleagues in the National Assembly with his leadership, making sure that that is the bedrock into the initiative that is being carried out. Youth involvement in making sure that they reach out to the communities and the youths, women, and disabled in general. And a lot of other initiatives that are coming. We're recently having a symposium that's also into the direction, that has to do with getting the youth also involved in governance. We've seen time without number in effect how the Senate president has made sure that he rallies around for youth inclusivity in governance, as much as making sure he brings about laws, and sees to the daily debate, and oversight functions of making sure that the laws that are being procured are very, very youth friendly. He never fails in that direction. Every day that I sit in the Hallowed Chamber to listen to the Senate president preside over the activities, the rules and the regulations and the reforms that has to do with this country, it is very evident that he is very, and I repeat, very particular in making sure that youth inclusivity is among the processes. Whatever that's going to bring ease of doing business for youth, I guarantee you that my principal, the Senate President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Godswill Akpabio, is on top of such initiatives as the Senate President, and make sure that the laws and the reforms that are being discussed and debated in the National Assembly are that which are queued and geared towards the youth.
So how soon is he building the Akpabioism College so that youth can begin to start to... Probably is the message you need to take back to him.
The Akpabioism College.
And then we need to have an Akpabioism College.
It's very, very imperative, very needed. The Akpabioism College has even begun from our state of mind, and we will just see to living his ideologies as a person. You see, he's somebody who is very heavy on the people. Just recently we were celebrating the fact that FIFA gave us the go-ahead in the Godswill Akpabio Stadium for the national team, the Super Eagles, to be able to use. It is a pride as Nigerians to beat your chest that if you fly down to Akwa Ibom State and you want to enjoy tourism, you want to enjoy sportsmanship, you go to the Godswill Akpabio Stadium and see the rich infrastructure of an ideology of a man who believes in continuity, who believes in carrying the people, from the grassroots to the top echelon, as a person and as a father and as a leader in his own sphere. And this is an ideology that I believe will trickle down into every south, every northern person, around. I have Northerners who champion the Akpabioism, like you say, the ideology, because they have seen his antecedents as a person, and I believe that this is something he's just, would continue over time, and this legacy and posterity would also speak for him.
Prince Great Owo Paul, we want to say thank you so much for finding out time to be with us.
Thank you very much, New Dawn. Thank you very much, Nigerians, and to you also. Thank you for this time. It's a very good one for youth inclusivity, for us to be able to pass the message into the youth and give them that renewed hope, that we are indeed in the right direction as you.
And don't forget to tell Senate President and Senator Godswill Akpabio that we're still waiting for the Akpabioism College so that people can come tap from his rich wealth of knowledge from governance and also his administrative style. Of course, is worth studying.
Definitely. I definitely pass the message on the one-on-one encounter with him.
All right. Thank you so much. What is our for weekend go today on a new day? I want to say thank you so much for being a part of the show. Till I come your way, same time tomorrow, I want to say thank you so much for being a part of the show. Bye for now.